Also to move that,
Yes, first I move.
move that the bill be taken for consideration.
Yes, sir. Sir, with your permission, thank you very much. I rise to move that the bill further to amend the Companies Act be taken into consideration.
Madam, if you want to,
Yes. Thank you very much for permitting me to give the salient features of the bill on the basis of which I'd like to take the inputs from the honorable members. As I had said at the time of introduction itself, sir, this bill actually took force in 2013 itself. And in 2013, in August, when this bill was first time passed under the Companies Act, as it was called, Companies Act, very significant changes related to disclosures to stakeholders, accountability of directors, auditors, and key managerial personnel, investor protection, and corporate governance were all part of the bill. Now, post 2013, after a lot of, again, stakeholder consultations, because there were very many different views coming on the bill as it was passed in 2013. And I remember also being a part of the stakeholder consultation at that time in 2014, as soon as the government was formed, as being a junior minister in the finance ministry under the eminent minister Sri Arun Jaitley. At that time, post all the consultation, in 2015, 22 amendments were carried out in May 2015 to the Companies Act. And post that, again, there were several voices saying the act is not all that very perfect. Could we have a lot more amendments again taken up? So this act itself is getting evolved further and further, that subsequently 93 further amendments were made through the Companies Amendment Act in 2017. So literally between 13 and 17 and 19, you see that various stages of evolution have passed, and the 2017 amendments were in pursuance of the recommendations made by Companies Law Committee, which was constituted by the government, which was chaired by the Secretary, Corporate Affairs. Now, after all that was over, again, because the ease of doing business had really caught up the imagination of a lot of people, there was a need for changing a bit more of the Companies Act. And again in July 2018, a committee was constituted, again with the chairmanship of the Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, to review the existing framework for dealing with offences under the Companies Act 2013. The committee undertook a detailed study of all the penal provisions and other relevant provisions and submitted a report in August of 2018. Now, post-August of 2018, after, again, a consideration by the Cabinet, it was considered absolutely urgent and important to plug the critical gaps in the existing Companies Act, even though it was amended subsequently in 15 and 17, and also to facilitate ease of doing business and to strengthen the corporate compliance management system. An ordinance, because the House was not in session, an ordinance was passed in 2018 in November of that year. And about 31 provisions were changed during that time. But between November 2018 and now, there's again a legislative process which was undertaken. December 2018, there were considerations in the Cabinet, and by 4th of January 2019, this year, the Lok Sabha considered the bill and then for the amendments and then passed it. Post-passing, the bill was taken up to the Rajya Sabha, where it was listed for 3 continuous days, but unfortunately, because the House was adjourned sine die, it couldn't be taken up. And since it couldn't be taken up at that time, there was a need for us to rush through with an ordinance, because we didn't want to have any gap in terms of the inputs for the amendments which have been taken up, and it was necessary to keep the continuity. So a second ordinance, the first ordinance was in 18 November, the second ordinance was brought in January of that year, of this year. Then the President promulgated the ordinance on 21st February 2019. Now, because all these changes are coming more driven from the ground, more driven by the stakeholders, more driven from the point of view of those who are probably gaming the system and not really allowing the jurisprudence to take full play, or even the in-house mechanisms which can give you solution can take play. So the ease of doing business point of view underlined the fact, also because the pendency of cases which are in NCLT, also because very many ambiguous areas, gray areas were all being leading to different interpretation. There was a necessity now again to make sure two things. One, everything that which went through the ordinance had to be given a legislative support through the bill. The amendments which were notified post the ordinance were being issued had to become a part of the Act itself. So the bill is now being brought. But even as it is brought, with all those very same amendments which were introduced through the ordinance and which were notified, we are also bringing in additional amendments, and which is what I want to underline. 31 amendments were taken through the ordinance, and those 31 are now getting legislative support because we are adding that to this amendment bill. Besides that, 12 new are being brought in, and altogether 43 will go through if we pass this bill today. 31 which were a part of the ordinance, which already got cleared through the ordinance, and those ordinance 31 amendments which were brought to the Companies Act 2013 were notified after the ordinance was issued. Now those 31 are a part of this amendment bill that we are bringing in. Together with it, 12 new are also being added. All of them together are aimed at two main things. Where compoundable offences were there, which only resulted from smaller, minor offences, which were not really all that serious and critical, we want to make that non-compoundable into compoundable. Compoundable to non-compoundable. And where there was a need to make the entire framework simplified, we are bringing those details only. So just to give a picture of prior to the ordinance, what existed. 134 provisions existed, of which compoundable offences were 81, 35 were non-compoundable, and in-house levy of penalties for which provision existed for the ROC level officers to deal with it, there were 18. All put together 134. Post the ordinance and the replacement bill, there will only be 65 compoundable offences. Therefore, it's going to be not rigorous on those who are doing smaller omissions and commissions. Non-compoundable offence will be 35. In-house levy, which will subject to penalties, they will only be 18, and 16 put together, all 134. So I wouldn't get into the details of the specific amendment points at this stage, but even as members have been given a copy of it, and if there are any things that which will emerge through the discussions which members of parliament would speak, I will certainly take point by point and reply during my reply stage. So I wish to hear all the members, and I'm sure this is being one of the very important bills for ease of doing business. I would like to hear all members' views. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. All members are requested to confine to the time because we have the private members' business also today. So the first speaker, Shri Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary.
Let's not try and pass it like this in a hurry.
No.
Important bill. If need be, this spills over Monday.
Yes, we agree. Yes, we agree. Very important.
Let us start the discussion.
Important thing we can
Whilst I take Honourable Member Pinaki Mishra's input, even at the stage of introduction, I clearly explained as to why it is urgent for us to consider this bill. Whilst I respect the view that all of us will have more time given will be better for us, this is an ordinance. Yes, I understand that. This is an ordinance will end this month end. 31st it ends. And we have done this 3 times over. Ordinance passing 3 times over. And I thought, even yesterday I mentioned it in response to Professor Saugata Roy, the best practice which the House normally propagates is get everything through the bill and not through ordinance. We don't want the ordinance in this. 3 times we sat with ordinance. I appeal to members. Because it's an ordinance which will expire end of this month, I seek your indulgence for a conversation on it.
Yes.